Let's try to play through the first turn in some detail, and then we'll pull back a little bit and go for the storyline. So the first thing we got is state receives income, which is going to be 75 more bucks. The revenue is the actual counters, so we're going to be at 150 in revenue. Then it has to pay 2 talents per fleet or army. Now, I have this with only 3 hoplites set up. I want to make sure that's correct. I'm just always worried that I screw up setup or something like that. Force pull all hoplites, all fleet starting forces, just 3 hoplites. So I spend $6. We don't have a navy yet. Doesn't feel much like Athens without a navy. 20 talents per active war. We don't have an active war. This one's inactive at this point. State pays for each incomplete project. There aren't any. There are a couple of notes here. So let's see. A couple of things that there's no card for. So the Great Temple of Athens is complete. The card's not included. I assume it just has no effect. And doesn't need to be there. It's only there because if alpha's included at some point, that'll be one of the cards that needs to be there. And there was something else. The card wasn't included for, but I don't remember what it is. It doesn't appear to be in this list. So I don't remember. But there's some political card that there's no card included, and I don't think it actually does anything. So I'm just going to ignore it. Okay. And I really should get those out of there. Okay, and then we get money for each person. So the faction leader will get $3, and followers, etc., I'll get money now. So for example, this guy, he's allowed to have this. This is for farmers only. So he'll be getting 4 extra bucks. He's the leader, so he'll get 3 plus 4 is $7 on him. Most of the characters will just get $1. So let me just do a couple of those, and then we'll back away. So up there, he gets $3. He has no followers, and we have a $3. And you got a lot of counters on each card. That's a little busier than how Republic of Rome works, and damn it. The tracking that I do in Republic of Rome is a little greater because I keep track of their ages on the cards as well, and maybe some other information. But there's it's a little harder when the game is pushing it on you, because those aren't things that I've developed. If you know what I mean, it's just easier to do your own stuff. So we put 1s on each of these. Now these are actually face down in normal play. You'll see the backs of the money are indistinguishable from one another. I'm keeping them face up because I want access to them. I will try not to let the amount of cash on any given card influence what other people choose to do. Over here, same situation. A 3, a 1, and a 1. Here, however, as we said, that's going to be 7 on him, and I'll put it over here just to give me more room. Mess. It's going to be tough. But yeah, one notable thing is that you're not going to have persuasion attempts against things without the defense. I've already said that. I got to fix these numbers, and I got to give them counters, so I'll back away from that. Nobody has any troop cards that they've played yet. I could have played some, but I didn't want to because that has a cost. And I can play them later as I need them. Trade, however. I believe that's trading cards and such, not amongst each other. So let me make sure that's the case. if I can find it. Yep. I'm going to see if anybody has anything that they cannot play. In particular, that would, at this point, be money cards. They wouldn't be allowed to play. So, 3 players have cards that go to merchants. Now, that they can't play. It's possible, and I guess merchants tend to get the majority of these, but I wouldn't know for sure. It's possible that they could end up with a merchant in their hand if they steal it from someone else. They're not going to be able to get it directly by drafting it or anything. However, they're putting up offers. Now, both merchants have some cards they'd be willing to offer. This guy has one he's willing to reveal, which is a stratagem. This guy's kind of like, well, I got a card I'd give. The stratagem doesn't seem terribly like a good card to have in your hand. So although he said, oh, look, it's a stratagem, he's mistaken in that that's a particularly appealing thing. So everybody's kind of like, well, I'd rather have something else. So he's going to look and see if he has something else that he'd be willing to give up. There's this corn subsidy law, which is pretty cool. And he has some troops, which he's not going to give up. And this guy has cards. He has an ecclesia. Maybe he'd give that up. Troops that he thinks are important. Democrats resist. He'd be willing to give this up to a non-aristocrat without a problem. But he doesn't really want to say, yeah, I'll give you something for nothing. Nobody wants the stratagem card. They're like, no, you hold on to that, dude. Which means I should be looking for some dice. There should be some here. There they are. I don't know. Is anybody really interested in taking an unknown card? Or they could take some cash. Now, are there restrictions if cash is paid as to who it comes from and where it goes? That do not violate the rules of play. I don't think the money has to go to any specific person, and I don't think the card has to be played immediately, which you wouldn't want to do at this point. So cash is probably the more desirable thing. His 3-point card, well, probably don't want to give that up. He's willing to. He's willing to give it up for $5, which is what the merchants have on their men across the board, and then possible bids above that. So let's see if either of the merchants is willing to play. He's willing to give $5, and we'll move that directly into the company treasury. Company treasury for this. Okay. So now the question is, what about these guys? They're probably worth $4. Is he willing to pay $4 for either of them? He is actually not. And they're like, well, you're going to make a lot of money off these. We have the capacity to hold 5 cards. Screw you, man. Especially when there's this, which is going to require 5 fleets to prosecute. That's $10 right there. So $4 at this point would be a reasonable price. But he's not willing to pay it. He's like, screw that. He'll give the stratagem card. Okay. So that's the end of the trade phase. Contributions, nobody needs to give anything to the bank. And now we check for bankruptcy. If this was negative, if the reserves were negative because nobody gave any money, that would be an issue. Giving money isn't always just a, hey, let's save Athens, or, there's reason to gain influence that can make you a more important chance at getting the statesman. I don't recall anything else. It screws your drafting position, which Rick cleared up, is why this table exists over here. So now we're going to go to the Agora phase, and I'm going to go start my work day. But I wanted to get just a little start on, try to get me more excited and on my way. I'm so bad at playing things for any length of time. It's not just the cold. I've actually got some of the heat on downstairs, so I'm afraid pipes might burst if I let it get too cold. But and I've got warm hat and everything. It's just, it's hard for me to game anymore. I don't know why. So we're at setup news cards, which if we look here, we're supposed to deal them out from here into the 6 news spaces. Now they stay face down. You might ask, why are you doing this? Well, I'm not sure exactly. I'm not sure what the necessity of dealing them out is, except as a counter. You could pull 6 and turn them sideways, I guess. Okay. And starting with the leader, everybody's going to get a set of turns. First, they might reveal the news card. The first 3 players are automatic, and that's one of the reasons is I thought there was a span number on here, but I'm not seeing it. Huh. Well, that's interesting. I dealt them in the wrong order, I guess. I guess you start from the end. So I should have dealt the first one here. It doesn't matter because the deck was shuffled. But yeah, the second set has a span on them. Okay. And after that, then we do other things in our turn. So let's turn up the first one, and that's this player's turn. And he gets Storms at Sea 2. Reduced by 1/3 the fleet component of the lowest numbered Persian war on the board. Place this card with that war as a reminder. Well, there isn't one. Replace any Storms at Sea card already present. If there is no such war or Athens has already defeated its fleet, remove this card from play. Okay. So into the box it goes, and there goes one of our potential advantages. Okay. The next thing is we can try to persuade someone. Now, my memory from other games of this type is persuasion attempts don't generally work on the first turn of the game. What I'm going to be doing is looking at influence plus oratory is 10. There's a 7-point bonus for factions. So I would have to be looking at a loyalty of 3 or less to have any chance at all. But I have to be careful because some things like this say Megacles loyalty 0. So if Megacles was in his faction, he would have a lower loyalty. And I'm not going to see a 0 anywhere, or a 3 or less anywhere, I think, unless there's a particularly interesting character around, or if there's one of those special rules. So this, Themistocles, loyalty 0, but he's not there either. I'm not even going to bother trying. Okay. If I was to bother trying, I have to place this cube, essentially declaring who I'm going to try to influence. I'm not sure what the effect of that is and why that little mechanism has to be in play, adds anything, but okay. Now I could play a statesman. I don't have one in my hand. You don't start out with any. Or attract a follower. Okay. So we'll probably try to attract a follower. If I can find that. Oh, I could assassinate. Designate a statesman, roll a die on a 4 through 6. I add a follower to that statesman. Okay. I want to do this to the youngest person I have. That's not probably him. So what do I have? 6, 16, and 22. 6 is actually my youngest. Huh. Well, that's awesome. Okay, so I roll a die. On a 4 through 6, I will get a follower. And he's probably an aristocrat. He doesn't get one. I could pay $2 and get a follower. This is early in the game. So it might be worthwhile, because what does an aristocratic follower do? Among other things, it gives me money each turn. I believe it gives me votes too. So I am going to actually spend that 2 extra bucks. I prefer, and then I get a little gold cube, which I'll try to remember what that means. I think I prefer the Republic of Rome method, where you can't just boost the value. This method was used in both this and in Founding Fathers, where you're just like, oh, I missed it by 2? Fine, I'll pay $2. Yeah. I like things where you're making a decision, how much is it worth to you beforehand to insure it, and not what was my role. But that's just a matter of personal taste. Okay. I could redistribute funds. I don't think there's any particular reason that I want to get all my cash out of my treasury. There may be a reason to put it all on one character, though. So I am going to put all $3 over here on Lysistratus. That allows me, I don't know, on bids, but there aren't any in this. So that was kind of stupid. Sponsored event, purchase a discard for 10 talents. I can't afford either of them. The events are over on this side. Minimum is 5. And I don't think I particularly want to. And that is the end of the first player turn in this first turn. Put the dice over here, because my pipe ran out. I'll come back and do the other players. I will probably start abstracting things already, just because these early player turns, there's not a lot going on. Okay, the second player, nothing exciting. He got a normal follower because he's not an aristocrat. Run a insanity card that affects Spartan leaders, no big deal. Third player, last of the automatic news cards. Well, this card has a skull on it, which means we have to do the Hand of Death thing. Now, unfortunately, that is not handled in the rules, is it? That's handled in the other book. Oh, there it is. When you show one with the Hand of Time, you roll a die on the Hand of Time triple. Okay. So, we see who dies. 4, the second oldest character. That's going to be character number 25. And this is the easiest way, because I don't want to move everybody up. This will always be within 3, unless somebody dies in the middle. And then we got possible problems. So Peristratus the Younger is dead. And gosh, I couldn't have used all of these up. Oh no, there they are. Okay. So what happens when he dies? They indicated when determining negative ages. Okay, that's not good enough. If somebody's dead, and unless you remember this, you're screwed. We go here, and we have to look up the death roll over in the glossary of terms behind the scenarios, which I think is a horrible place for this. His popularity turns to victory points. There aren't any. When the statesman dies, the oldest statesman, and by the way, this is wrong. This should be total influence, so let me just take that off, because I have to recalculate those. Okay. The oldest statesman in the faction becomes, yeah, that's not what happens here. His time trappers, markers, and discard his income and troops. Remove the statesman from play. Okay. So there's nothing too exciting that happens. Absolutely nothing. He has no popularity, so he doesn't generate any victory points for me. Right. But the other thing is we've got this other inactive war, which would also be able to attack. If we do this, it would also create Persian hostility. I don't know which, if any of these, we want to actually engage in. They both have fleet requirements, so they might be a little difficult. Not much else to do here. He's going to roll for a follower, you know. As I have with the, now I don't even know what I'm saying. Yes, with these counter trackers, so I have no idea who my old guy is. You know, the way that I keep track of ages in Republic of Rome, which, you know, is a purely optional thing that I do. I'm making up rules to do this for that game. Is I just keep a little number marker, and once they hit a certain age, they die. Period. The end. They can die before that through random events, which probably are a little bit more likely to happen than they are here. But yeah, it's just sort of a slow progression that automatically happens. Here, the more people that are out, the longer they live, which feels a little weird. You would think population pressures would actually reduce the lifespan? Probably. No. But yeah. By not having a good view of who my oldest character is. Now, I know the leader is my youngest character. I don't know who to make sure doesn't have money on top of them. Because somebody should always, you know, if somebody's within the first 4 or 5, and certainly within the first 3, you should try to get their resources out of their hands as quickly as possible. I read about these boxes, and I think I did screw up. I think they should be like this. Was that I was noticing, oh look, this one's a 1, this one's a 1, 2, this is a 1, 2, 3. So if you were going backwards, it wouldn't be right. What these numbers are is they're sitting on top of the cards that they affect. So the next one is a 1 to 3. Sometimes the design can be too clever for me. Okay, so we do have a news item there, and we'll flip that over. This is for here. And it's another one of these, and this is kind of a sign that maybe I didn't shuffle very well. Okay, silver discovery, revenue goes up by 30 talents. Now this is beginning to worry me. So this is revenue. That's up to 100. So we've got a better income. But I'm not so sure that these go in the discard now, because the discard gets reshuffled. Should that silver discovery, should there be regular silver discoveries, or is that a one-time event? And if it's a one-time event, then the insanity is the same kind of card. It would also be. Things get confusing here. If the current game state does not fulfill a card's requirements, place it on the discard pile and draw a replacement. I assume from the top of the deck and not somewhere else. Wait, if needing a replacement but the deck is empty, then reform. Yeah. So the first player should not have gotten this card. That card is in the discard. This card I'm not so sure about. It does not say what to do with a played news card, which means it's time to start looking to see, as you get used to this, is there something there? No, there's no picture of the news cards here, an indication of what happens to them. I think this is a one-shot event and that it doesn't go in the discard pile, but I'm not positive yet. So this is going to take a bit of paging through the rules and trying to figure out what the fuck's going on. Quick flip through didn't give me an answer, so my assumption is news cards, unless they say they're discarded, go elsewhere. I remember there was something about that, unless it says it's discarded, or unless it says it's removed. And I didn't remember which was which. I thought it was unless it says it's removed, it's discarded. The insanity is different. That did not have an effect. So now we go back to, I guess, the first player, and we have the first Parthenon, and that has to go someplace. I don't know where that goes. That goes in inactive projects. I've got an active project space here, but nobody's created this. Huh. Let's figure out where that goes. This is getting painful having to do all these lookups. It's not explained like so much, and it really does have to tell you where to put things. But let's make some thought experiment here. It may be in the active projects, but it doesn't have a time tracker on it, so it's not been voted on yet. So I can tell whether or not that's actually in play. I don't know if there's enough room for all the active wars, inactive wars, etc. There never was in Republic of Rome either. It's hard to get space all in the right places on a board. By the way, this has a full hard board. So does Republic of Rome. I'm not sure how necessary that is, but it's appreciated in the sense that cards don't slip around as much as they do on the light boards. You bump the table with the light boards, which we saw in the last game that I played, and things just kind of move very, very easily. My damn battery charger is being a problem, which is why I moved around there. It has to be angled just right to get the power to it. I don't understand. I've never seen such a crappy plug. It didn't used to be that bad. Okay, so now we're back on his turn. He just drew that. There's not much to do except his regular turn. So all but one of the news cards came up. I guess we put this last one up here. The extra one that came up caused another death to his oldest statesman. All my votes are wrong. At least for the players who lost them. So let's see. It was oratory, so yellow is at 5 now. And blue is down to 3. And we've got one of the interesting wars in the sense that we're going to be going, okay, there are no extra initiatives. I'm going to mark this as the assembly phase because I'm going to have to go away. It's time to start working. Damn it, there it goes again. Okay, this is an interesting war. It's one of the perilous wars, which could lose us the game. It's pretty damn big. The 4th Persian War, but we don't have to do them in order. But we're going to need 30 fleets. Well, we're allowed to get 20 there, so we'd have to build 10 fleets. This would give us 30 armies. This has 80. We might be able to deal with this. I have to see how everything coordinates. So like there's troop cards. With those in play and everything, we might have a chance of taking this out. And the suggestion is you want to take these out early. Of course, not if you're the person in the lead in the game, which is no one right now. But yeah, but that's not the case. There is a tiebreaker and everything. So it is in at least one person's favor to see Athens fall. It may be in more than one person's favor, because if you look at things kind of like I do, which is that the goal isn't always just to come in first in a game. You might be reasonably willing to play for second, especially, you know, like let's say this is, I'm adding metadata to this, but let's say this is in a tournament where the first 2 players advance. It would then be in 2 players' interests to crash the game right now, you know. Alternatively, though, it could be in, you know, it certainly is in one person's favor, no matter how you look at it, even if you take a binary win-loss perspective, rather than, I finished in the top half, that's pretty good. Got it done like that. Played 3 games, finished first, second, and third in all of them, you know. I mean, it all depends on what you value in terms of the winning. So there's a problem to me with someone wanting to have the game end on this first Persian War. I am going to play it by this game's implied victory conditions, because to me that's part of the design. I may disagree with that, but there is at least one person who may be trying to foil the game. They may try to get Persia to win the war, or to delay the wars as an easier means of trying to crash Athens as a whole, although that's more difficult. If they can get Persia to win the war, their current position matters. The current position, in terms of whatever the victory points are, it's probably a tiebreaker situation, which could involve, one leader's death could change their position. So you don't want to count on like, gee, maybe next turn I can win. Nah, but if you can win this turn, that person at least is going to try to skew this whole situation. Is that horrible? Not particularly. One person opposed to fighting the war is fine. However, if somebody had the card which was out, which gives you so many talents per navy that's built, that player might be thinking, I might want to delay the war a turn until I can get that card out. Especially if somebody had traded for it, especially, they might not have the opportunity to play it. Although I think you can play those at any time, so that's not that big a deal. As soon as they get it, they might play it. But they probably want to hold on to it and play it just before. I don't know. We'll see. Because if it's truly at any time, they can play it just, as the naval build is announced. So that wouldn't be a problem. But there's certainly conditions in which people might not want this war floated at that moment. And if that's the case, then the person who's trying to win the game by crashing it may have more support. You don't have anything like that in Republic of Rome's formulation. No one wins. So if it's early in the game, what you're looking at is, we might not. What you're looking at is one of two perceptions. Either we all lost and about it in about as terrible a manner as possible, and that's horrible, or we all tied. If you want to take a viewpoint that the game doesn't really expose it all, the game only speaks of losing in one condition, which is all players lose if Rome falls. They don't speak about losing as a defined state in any other condition. Neither does this game, for that matter. But this game doesn't speak about losing at all. It just has a winner, and you can appropriate whatever additional information you want to, like coming in second is better than coming in fourth, and any of that metadata you want to add to your game, you can, but that's all based on your philosophical stance. But Republic of Rome very clearly defines losing in one state only, and that one state is, the thing that I would assume all players want to avoid. All right. An assumption that I'm wrong about fairly often, because some people see it as, well, I'm tied with the other players. That's all I cared about. Now, the first step is to promote imminent wars. These are all inactive. However, if Persian hostility is created, that turns the Persian wars into imminent wars. So, which is up here, I guess, which would bring them more into effect. The first time we do a Persian war, we cause that, and these things would cause a problem. So I think what we'd rather do is try to, if there's any way we can handle the Persian war, we want to do that. But we don't have a lot of cash, so I'm going to have to kind of figure that out and probably grasp a lot of the rules at once. Like in Republic of Rome, I'm facing, an existential threat right at the beginning of the game, basically. There might be more later, but at this point there definitely is one that we have to worry about. So we can ignore that. Rotate council members, that's not in effect. Elect officers. The election, I believe, for this guy is always the most combined oratory and influence. That's going to stay in the same person if he's allowed to. That's a good question. I don't know whether he's allowed to repeat or not, and if he is allowed to repeat, whether he keeps getting influence cubes for staying in office. Can't find anything that says anything specifically, and I don't really feel like digging through the rules. I don't remember anything that says anything. I'm going to go by what the card says literally, which is he has not taken office again. I think this is the intention. He'll get to hold that office. He gets the extra influence for the position. If it gets stripped away from him and he gets it again, he'll get more influence, which could cause an interesting situation. But since it's not an elected position or whatever, he's just sort of automatically getting those values. Now we have all of these possibilities available. So as a group, we're going to work together to figure out what we want to do. Now, one of the things we have to do is figure out the victory point situation, which everybody's at 0 victory points, but the influence I do have to count. So everybody's at 0 victory points at this point. So nobody gets an edge. These numbers, I actually really don't have to track them at this point. I thought I needed to. What I have to be careful about is the votes, but I kept them in play. So I expended some effort putting those counters out there, and I'm not going to be able to maintain the tracks. I'm going to have to recount every time, I'm pretty sure. The victory points I'll be able to keep scored because that's a seldom occurring event. But nobody has any victory points. Nobody has any popularity cubes or popularity either. Whoop. Wait, what are popularity cubes? Am I screwing something up? No, they're not cubes. Oh, okay. So yeah, this is the thing. He has popularity. No one else does. He would win the game if he can crush the government on this first turn. So you immediately get a traitor in the setup of the scenario because that'll be the only person with any popularity. He wants Athens to fail. However, in order to get Athens to fail, he has to get a law, or he has to get not a law, but a motion passed to prosecute this war with insufficient troops. And nobody else may want to do that. He may want, however, if he can't get that done, to not propose fighting the war, because he has no easy way to do it. So it's going to be tough to convince other people, given that mindset. And this is because there's no automatic loss for everyone. That, well, maybe we shouldn't prosecute this, but we can prosecute that. And he doesn't have the kind of cash to force a vote successfully. And somebody might have one of the veto cards, which, because of the different government types, etc., when you can play them, you got to go look that up into the rules. And that, I'm beginning to get crankier and crankier, not just this game, but about all games that are forcing me to look things up more. I think it's just age and not gaming as much, honestly, not doing as much of the solo gaming. Here's the problem as we start to calculate out the war. Athens doesn't have a lot of money. They have $144. Each military unit costs $10. I've got 3 hoplites right now. I could conceivably build some more, but in order to prosecute the war, I'm going to need 30 fleets. If we bring the Allies along, the Spartans, we get 20 of those fleets. So now I have to buy 10 fleets. That's most of my money. I could buy 4 more hoplites. All right. So now I'm at 7 hoplites. That'll give me a military strength of 7. Okay. I'm facing 80. And I have to beat this and get lucky on that. But maybe I don't have to have that many fleets because I could get away with less fleets if I'm bringing enough commanders. However, let's say we're around, I don't know, 12. I think that's probably over optimistic, but let's say we're at 12 for the land units. We have a stratagem. I'm just trying to figure this out, whether or not we can do this. If we have a commander with good military, well, he does not, and he can't hand it off. Does anybody have backroom deals? He could steal a card. He might or might not want to do that. Our laws don't appear to be things that would... Son of a bitch. Okay, gotta find where the laws don't look like they're anything that's gonna help me in a fight. These are not actually troops. They don't generate anything. Oh boy. Oh, I don't know if I could play that. Shit. I've got capacity to jump in. Now, one of the things is with the Thetes, if I play those are going to be, like, say he plays one, which he doesn't really want to, but if he had one, he could cause himself, he could cause some of his votes to go in favor of any war proposal. This is actually where the danger comes. If people start playing Thetes out, they have more votes in general, but they will vote for any project and any war, which means if those were out already, there might be enough votes for him to pass a bad war, which would be terrible. So it is kind of cool that I didn't play them initially. They're dangerous. So I'm not seeing a likely stratagem that'll work. This guy has one which, if he goes along, he has military abilities of 2, which means on a 1 or a 2 he could reduce his strength. But I don't feel like we have the strength to go after the Persian War. And given that there's one out here that would become an imminent war if we pursue either of these other battles, I don't know if we want to fight the other battles. However, he might. Yeah, danger in that, of course. Someone else might get some popularity. Whew. Which means everyone's kind of in this position of, well, what can we do? No one wants to pass the project. A, it'll use up money. And B, it gives a popularity bonus to the leaders. Let's see, I believe when it passes it goes this one, and when it is completed it does this one, but I'm not sure. That may be proposal and something else. These cards are of course covered in here. Proposing the project and when it completes. So someone who successfully proposes the project will get one of these temporarily, but then or immediately. But then somebody else perhaps will get that. And this guy could say, well, I've got a good chance of living. I would support someone else proposing it. But if he proposes it, there's no real reason that anyone would support it unless, let's see how old he is. He's very young, so he's not going to die, which means that no one else is going to inherit or have a good chance of inheriting this. Therefore, it's going to be pretty tough to pass that. I'm trying to hash through, this is kind of how I think things out in a Republic of Rome situation. And it matches play a lot of times. A lot of times play, is these decisions are ruled by someone, by people hashing out a decision like this amongst themselves, where votes aren't even taken, kind of like, in the House or in the Senate. Votes aren't even taken if they're going to fail. There's no reason to. It's just going to, it's a waste of time, but it also, in real life, is a loss of prestige to fail at a vote. Here, not so much. What it means, though, sometimes you have people who jump in and make a proposal or something with their veto card, or in this case, the Ecclesiastes card or whatever, and they're just wasting it because they haven't laid the groundwork first. You really do have to count your votes before you go forward. Still doesn't guarantee anything. Close votes might be determined by money. Even distant votes might be determined by money. The power of the leading statesman to determine the order of voting can have some very significant effects on, who gets that last chance to drop money on the board and whether or not they want to. Sometimes what you have in other games of this nature is that person doesn't want to be holding the last position because they don't want to be responsible for forcing the vote through. So they put it on someone else who's also in favor of the vote, or in favor of their position on the vote, but they're not willing to spend money either, given that they were kind of railroaded into that position. They're like, well, you put $5 in it and I'll cover, or something like that. But nothing, there's nothing binding. So yeah, I'm not seeing anyone who's willing to cut deals terribly well. Unlike in Republic of Rome, there aren't a lot of things to hand out here. There's kind of the option of, do we fight a war or not? Do we build this or not? What else is left? Building troops. Well, it would be nice to get the money, it would be nice to build the troops, but if we're not going to use them, it doesn't make sense. Neither of these give any treasury advantage. This number is, time to look it up. I don't know if I think that's a one-time payoff. I should say 10. No, that's a different 10. 10 talents, yeah, it's a one-time pay. It's not like there's any revenue, so you're not gaining territories that give you more money. I'm having a real tough time seeing any reason to do anything in this. Don't believe in active wars fall into active if there's too many or anything like that, but they are a burden that the news could probably throw in an inactive war to become active or something like that. Maybe throw all of them over, which would screw everything. But I honestly don't see anything that anybody wants to do here. People might have laws that they think they can pass. Well, let me see about that. Two people who are claiming they have laws that they could interfere. Oh, did this guy get something cool? This guy got a trade he likes. We may see something happen. People have laws that they could pass that would give them perhaps the lead in the game. At least they'd be one of the top 3 people. And being one of the top 3 people, maybe it's worth, trying to end things under those conditions. Wow. The victory conditions have totally tainted my way of playing this, because like in an 18xx game, if you can guarantee you're going to be in one of the top 3 places by a move out of like a 6-player game, it might be worth it, It just cut half the competition out and make it a die roll, essentially, rather than having to force it all out. Well, that begins to come into play here. On the other side, it's these two guys, and they may be discussing this. They only have 10 votes between them. They probably can't pass the law. If they could get him in on it, But he's like, yeah, I don't know. We'll have to see what happens. Maybe I'm in favor, maybe I'm not. He's probably in favor of one and not the other or something like that. However, that discussion has brought this guy's card into hand. Play during your segment of the Agora phase. The trade phase happened. Does he want to give away 2 cards to get that economic card? See, this would have happened earlier, and I forgot to do it, but he could try to steal a card from him. And he knows he's got a good income card. I think I don't want it because I'm not a merchant. Okay, well enough. If this guy had it, he would consider it. Which means, do I want one of these laws that's being discussed? Not terribly. Do I want to trade away an Ecclesiastes for who knows what? If somebody has a big handful of cards, maybe. But I think I'll hold on, see if I get something, that's useless to me that I can pass away. Yeah, all this effort, and I think we're not going to do anything because there's just not enough deal making capacity on the board, and we can't do the thing that most of us think we should do, which is prosecute this war. We really are pretty sure we can't. Let's see. If we prosecute just that war, we could send how many leaders? We could send Lysistratus, who sucks at military, and I think 4 strategos, which we actually have to hand out, don't we? I think we actually have to give them out. It's a little hard in this to piece together where the officers come. So elect officers, hey, under oligarchy, okay? Then we elect the 4 strategos. I think the leading statesman just always gets assigned when he dies. I'm not sure. Starting with the determination of the leading statesman, yeah. But that's a specific case if there's no one you can elect. Okay. Now, a strategos can repeat in office. I don't see anything like that with the leading statesman, which may mean that repeating may mean that you're getting a new instance of the office, but this doesn't, or maybe that does. Jeez, I don't know. All right, I guess I have to fucking start wading through the rules again and try to find that. As you start to get used to it. Not so used to the cold and trying to sit down in the, not the kind of chair I like. I have a significant lack of comfort here, which seems surprising. I got it in the downstairs room, but I can't really do things down there for the most part. The leading statesman under democracy, the statesman having the most oratory, assign this office immediately whenever it is vacant, including the start of the game, but only at this time. And at that point, they get the instruction. So we've got him handled. We did him right. Let's look up strategos, which probably is in here as well. It just takes some getting used to, and maybe there needs to be some kind of input in the rule book to say, you know what, the glossary is really important and it's in another book. Go look at it. Okay. Oh, shit. All right. Not covered here. I am saying that whoever wins the strategos proposal, whether they held it before or not, is going to get the influence bonus off of it. So, this is actually the thing we have to do first, I believe, is put the offices in position. But before we do that, we discuss all the deals and figure out what the turn actually is going to be, which is why all this understanding has to be. So, now we have to look up how the strength of the war would be. Oh, and no, it's only one for each army. The highest rating plus one for each other commander, no more than the total strength of the forces involved. So if we're talking about like 7 armies or something like that, we're just not going to be able to add much in total. Right, and I don't know if we add to the Allied forces. If we did, then that's different. The total strength of the Athenian force, that doesn't sound like the Spartans would get thrown in. So yeah, we could get by with less navies though. There's no question of that. And I think there's little counters for naval battles won. They're unfortunately gonna be on the back of one of these if they exist. Sadly for me, I don't think all the different options are here. Maybe they are. Combat status is on the reverse. That could be multiple things. So they're probably buried in those. Okay. Can we propose a battle here? That might work. I don't know. Jesus. I don't think we can. I really don't think we can. Which means we don't want to build troops. Now, we could take one of these out, but that would mean next turn we have to cope with this. And I don't know if we're going to have that kind of money next turn either, or that kind of position next turn. So I think we are going to close the session as soon as we get the strategos up. If we're not prosecuting a war, I want the strategos to be on lousy leaders across the board. No reason to use up good leaders and give them influence. But what do I propose as a set? Well, I'd like a little bit of the specialty myself, you know. Cleisthenes is fairly lousy. He's old. He's going to die soon. His influence is probably not too important. So if I can come up with a selection of people, I need, if I can get 3 other players basically to agree, they'll take a strategos each. We should be able to divide this up. Now, it may be that nobody wants him to have 2 strategos, and then we're going to have some issues. Let me do some die rolling and see whether or not he can get 3 other players to agree. Does he need 3? Not necessarily. He can probably do it with the, 2 of the top ones because the 3 bottom ones, but assign it to a 3rd one. So he really needs to get 2 of the top players to agree with him in terms of votes. So he got red and clear both to agree. He couldn't get this orangish guy to agree, which means he has enough votes. And now what he's going to do, he's going to assign one to the weakest guy. So here are our options. You have to give one to red and clear. Clear? I guess that's pale yellow. A whole bunch of lousy people are getting these. But I'll take one on Cleisthenes. And everybody's okay with this. So it doesn't just automatically pass. Going through the formalities, he has to pick people. Well, he's going to pick blue first. Blue's got one. Blue says, yeah, I'm in favor. So the way I'm going to mark that is I'm going to put that in favor here. White is definitely opposed. Not so opposed that he's going to throw money in because with these offices, you can fling things back and forth. So he puts his 4 votes against. Both of these he's not going to call on yet. He's going to call on orange. Orange is opposed and, again, isn't really willing to. But these 3 players are all in favor, so that proposal passes. And that's, how I'm going to mark the voting, at least in my head. I'm not going to go through it normally, though. That means we grab a pile of influence counters, and I'm gonna get those pieces of paper or cards in the right position a little later, but right now I'm just throwing out those cubes. However, I have to make the decision, can we close the proceedings? Now, I can ask to close the proceedings and that vote doesn't work, and I don't know what happens in that case. I can do it at any point as long as there's no active proposal. No, I don't have to have a vote for it. So unless somebody's going to toss a card at this point, it's over. Maybe more capable people who've played this a couple of times will know how, to affect the number of points needed to deal with that war. I feel horrible leaving all these things out there. That seems like a terrible danger. However, even in Republic of Rome, you can't always deal with the wars that you start the game with. Sometimes they come out a little worse. This one, it might have been fortunate that it came out when it did, because it prevents us from going after these, which I probably would have done anyway, and then, turn the Persian Wars into imminent wars instead, whatever that means. So, we're going to adjourn assembly. There will not be any war. And now, we go to the final part, which is 7 cards are drawn from the people deck. And starting with the person with the fewest votes, they're going to get to draft a card. They cannot take a statesman not of their class. So he's going to only be able to choose farmers as statesmen, but he can take any other card he likes. If there are no cards he can legally take, i.e. they're all statesmen of other classes, then he gets to keep drawing. From Blue's point of view, they look at the cards. They've got 2 different aristocrats. These they cannot take. The other cards are interesting. Seduction, they can prevent opposition from spending on your persuasion attempt. This gives you a chance to persuade. And then it goes back in the bottom of the deck, so it's a replayable people card. It never ends up in the discards, doesn't end up out of the game. 30 Tyrants, this one's interesting. This can continue the game. Unfortunately, it's a really good card for an aristocrat to have, but if somehow we fail with the 4th Persian War, might be a safe thing for him to have in hand so he can play it. Just to force that he doesn't lose the game because someone else won or something. I don't know. Citizen requirements. This is a really nice one, but I don't want this. Why is it nice? Well, no, this isn't the nice one. So this one is a law. It gives you 2 influence markers and a double popularity. That's a pretty good payoff for 10 talents. That seems pretty nice. If laws are being passed, this is one that I might be able to get, agreements on without, once the Persian Wars are done, without having to, really bankrupt the state. The problem is, the only way I might get this passed is in conjunction with some other laws that are problematic. Enemies of democracy. This is another law. If you assassinate a statesman who plays 30 tyrants, you're immune from getting caught. Might be neat, but I don't really care. And then the final one, 3% tax. Okay, this is the good one. This is the one that somebody ought to take because we need to increase our revenue. But you end up losing 2 of your popularity markers. And if you don't have any, you take black cubes, which are negative popularity. This is really appealing, but I don't know that I want to be the guy who has to propose this. So on a 1, he'll just go for that. He will not. So I think what he's going to do is he's going to grab the citizen requirements because that seems like a pretty good card. All right, so that's him. We go to White. White's an aristocrat. He has lots of good things going for him. He would like the best of these leaders, I think. Is there a good leader? This one's better. He is not blocked from being played. You can't play 2 people from the same family unless you're in the same, unless you have all the characters from that family in your faction already. I'm going to grab this. The other option would be to grab the 30 tyrants or the enemy of democracy. But you know, those are going to happen or they're not. I'm not too worried about that. The player of this gets to choose who the Archon is, which might be of some value. However, even though things look dangerous, I don't think I want to do that yet. Okay, red and clear. Now here, we have to find ties to fewest votes than oldest statesman. No, wait, what did I do? Oh, VP plus IP. What the hell? Oh, shit. I've screwed this up already. Okay. Let's redo the thinking. Okay. So VP plus IP is the first thing, and that's what you need this for. So we needed to calculate these. Who has the lowest? Yeah, this isn't the easiest thing in the world to figure out. It looks to me like yellow has the lowest, and he was going to take this. Okay, so his is done. Yeah, I thought it was votes. The next lowest, oh God, this is hard to read with these cubes. I don't know if counters would be better. At least I could stack them in order. The next lowest appears to be blue, and we knew what he was going to take. He took this, so he's out of the running there. Purple is not next lowest. It looks like red is next, and he's a farmer. What's he going to pick? I don't know. We'll see if he's going to step up and do the good thing. He's not terribly interested in that. We're going to leave this for the last person to choose either to take or not. Looks to me like the seduction is probably the best thing left. That gets us to the orangish yellowish, who is a merchant. Can't take this. Is he going to be good? Nope. I'll take the 30 tyrants. Gives him more power. Okay. And that gets us to now the white. Oh, this guy was not an aristocrat. Fuck. Well, he will take him. Did he take the 3% tax? He did not. So he backs up. I don't know how many we go back. Let's go back here. 30 tyrants was there. Who is he? He's yellow. Yellow went first. Yellow will take this. Okay. Then we go to blue. Blue will take the seduction, I guess. Got the ordering wrong. And I hope I hit everybody. Red was a farmer. He'll take the 30 tyrants. That means now we're at orange. We already jumped to white. He's not done yet. He doesn't want to be forced to make that choice. Oh, I don't know. Odds he'll take it. Yeah, he'll take it. If things get ugly enough, it'll keep the game alive. That means white gets his choices. Does he want enemies of democracy? Definitely not. So he'll take the people card, and that puts it on him. He will also take a people card. This card, I believe, gets discarded. And yeah. Discard cards, no one drafts. That means it's still available, but whatever. All right. Can you play your drafts immediately? I don't think so. You play a statesman during your turn. Okay. There's no oligarchy, so there can't be a coup, and that's the end of one turn. A little bit over the hour that I won it for the victory, for the video, but dang, that's life. All right, let's send this one up. One quick problem to that, I'm leaving it alone, is that what I did, I forgot to add the influence points for the people who got Strategos. I'm gonna pretend that didn't affect order. I don't think it actually did, but just, you know, letting you know in case you're like, well, wait a minute, isn't that? Yeah.